Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Raymarc Solutions webinar. Raymarc is highly repeatable, best practice IT system management and service delivery. We strive to satisfy the ever-increasing demand to cut cost, increase efficiencies, and align ourselves with the goals of your business. BMC Service Desk Express is sunsetting at the end of 2017, and support will no longer be available. If you have SDE, contact us at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278, and we can successfully migrate you to another solution that best fits your business's needs. Today, we will address your questions about BMC FootPrints version 12 and answer your biggest challenges from your webinar sign-up forms during our BMC FootPrints Tips and Tricks presentation. Our presenter today will be Greg Gielda, but before we get any further into this, we have a lot of folks on today's webinar, and I want to thank everyone from Canada and from Texas and California and Maryland and New York from taking time out of your busy day to be with us this afternoon. Now, Greg has been with Flycast Partners pretty much since its founding, and there's a big reason why Flycast Partners remains one of the top value-added resellers in the North American market. Greg has a proven history in leadership, consulting, ITIL implementation, and developmental stewardship of all ITIL best practice disciplines, including change management, problem management, incident management, ITIL configuration, and release management. Greg is well into his second decade in the IT industry with several hundred implementations under his belt. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gielda. And Mr. Gielda, your screen is looking good. I see that you've got an instance up there, and I can hear you.
Perfect. These are the two bits of technology that really help this come together, right? The visuals and the audio part. So thanks for making them both happen, Rich. Appreciate that. And thanks to everybody on the other end of the call who took time out of their day to listen to me yak at you for about the next hour. Go ahead, Rich.
I know. I was just going to say it's a big crowd today, so there's a lot of interest in this topic. I'm looking forward to what the challenges are.
Absolutely. And, you know, as I was looking through that list of challenges, the one that kept standing out really above all the rest of them was a lot of folks are looking to try to get to version 12. So that's probably the topic we're going to cover at the end. It can be, you know, a little bit of discussion around that point. So we'll definitely make that our focus, sort of how to get there from earlier versions of FootPrints if you've already got a different version. So again, greetings to everybody all over North America. From those of you hailing from Minnesota, greetings from across the other side of the St. Croix River. I'm here in Wisconsin in my home office as we present this for you. So thanks for tuning in. I should be able to see the screen with FootPrints up, as Rich alluded to. It looks like everybody can. So we're going to talk a little bit for the next 45 minutes or so about FootPrints. Now, for those of you who have the product before, I'm going to try to tip my hat a little bit to some of those features and capabilities that you're familiar with in old versions that are a little different here. For those of you who have not seen it before, this is just going to be a brand new and refreshing feeling, hopefully, to take a look at the solution. FootPrints is a 100% web-based solution that's been around in the ITSM space. Gosh, I mean, I'm old. So it's been around in the ITSM space for, I've been working with it for 6 or 7 years anyway, maybe 8, 9 years even. There are over 1,800 installations of FootPrints around the globe. And as a Gartner statistic, most everybody who's using FootPrints, over 80% of them, are using it for something that isn't IT. Right, so IT is perfect. It fits right in. We're on the Gartner charts, and we have the ability to manage all of those ITIL processes. So we are, of course, an ITSM solution.
Greg, it appears that we've lost audio from you there. I see your picture's fine. I just don't hear any audio right now. Bear with us for a moment, folks. It looks like Greg's having a technical issue. I'm sure he'll be back up. It looks like his audio is coming up now. There he is. There he is.
I am. Yeah. Apologies. Apparently, our technology day is upon us. Today is National Technology Day. I made that up. But yeah, I was just disconnected from the WebEx. So as I was getting to, Footprints uses a unique concept in the industry, and that concept is known as a workspace, right? It's a collection of everything that you need to manage your processes. And this is one of the reasons why Footprints is so successful at managing things that aren't just information technology, because those workspaces can be configured to do anything you want. We're totally codeless, so nobody's ever scripting or writing a language or learning how to write one. DBAs are not harmed in the making of this product, right, because they really don't have anything to do, so they can focus on their day jobs instead of having to tinker in the back end of Footprints. So really, the tool is very, very low maintenance in terms of configuration and setup. Another Gartner statistic, roughly 0.25 of an FTE for setup, roughly 0.10, a little less than that, during operation. So when using Footprints in your house, you don't have to have someone who is a dedicated resource for this purpose. The tool is designed to be operational with a click of a mouse, literally, once you learn your way around. And since we're web-based, there is no client. So nobody has to push a particular application anywhere. You don't have to maintain that or keep it up to date. Footprints uses anybody's web browser at all, doesn't matter. Your iOS devices are perfectly legitimate. Any Chromebook you have will browse Footprints. You can administer the whole thing from your Android tablet if you want to. So every device you own, portable or not, can use Footprints and a web page. We serve all of our data up in HTML5 for those of you keeping track of that kind of thing at home. That means that those pages will scale nicely on literally any device. So let's talk a little bit about the actual solution. Now, I mentioned workspaces as a concept. Workspaces are really the things that you might think about in other tools as modules. Right? Somebody says, hey, I need the problem management module because I want to manage problems. Well, the thing is, a workspace in Footprints can be any shape or any size, just like a factory in the real world can be any shape or any size. Right? And that's a good analogy because if you build 4 walls and put some automation equipment inside, you can probably build a widget or a sprocket or a guitar or an automobile or whatever your factory happens to turn out. And with Footprints, those workspaces are like those factories, right? Construct a workspace on the inside, no code, no scripting, point and click your way through setting up that workspace with its automation capabilities. And you now have the ability to manage not just your incident processes, but your service requests, right? Your not break fix services, your problems, your requests for change, facilities requests, literally anything you'd like. And your customers can also interact with you through their own portal or by sending information to you via email. And of course, we always recommend that if your hair is on fire, you do not email the fire department. You should call them, so you can always have your agents take your call, such as I'm doing today. I'm in from the technician's perspective, and my screens are going to look a little different than other people who may be using the tool, because Footprints flexibility allows you to really set it up so that it fits your business need, as opposed to making the tool tell you what your business needs are supposed to be, like so many other solutions do. Now, I'm going to roll some of this out of the way, but on my home screen, I have access to details that help me do my job, that help me make decisions. Hey, where are all the tickets? Are they all in request status? That means we haven't touched them yet, and we probably should get off the dime. Hey, who's got L1 tickets assigned? Raise your hand. I can see that information too, or any other breakdown of data that makes sense to view. Maybe I get to view all tickets, or maybe I have changes that are awaiting approval and somebody's got to sign off on that particular change, like me, and say yes. So Footprints allows you to view any data that you need to in order to get your job done. And because that doesn't take any coding to configure this ability, you have the ability literally to customize the way your home screen looks and to add the information to it that you'd like to, honestly, just by clicking the button and making the changes. You can see here's my L1 tickets, here's my incidents by status, here's the little buttons that I have across the top, all configurable from here, point and click, drag and drop, with no coding or scripting. So your coders and scripters that are out there that love to code and script, we love you. But you don't have really anything to script for here, so you get to go about your normal day job. Most people breathe a sigh of relief as a result of that. So I'll get this up out of the way so that I can have more full access. And you can see we have several different types of tickets open in my demo environment. So I'll go ahead and pick on one of the more popular ticket types that people open: incidents, right? Break fix services that we offer to our customers or our technicians, whoever happens to be using the tool. And of course, as we talk about our customer portal, we'll get into this part a little bit more deeply. But the ability to capture data for an incident request means entering my name because I'm the caller. Right, so I'll go ahead and put my name in, link to me as a contact, pull my information back. This can come from Active Directory if you'd like. This can come from a footprint source. It can come from your favorite CRM solution, you know, maybe Salesforce.com is your CRM choice, maybe a Microsoft CRM choice, or even a SQL data source, as I said. So this lets you pull the contact detail back into the record. And one of the key elements of being able to do this, especially if you tie footprints into its brother, what's now called BCM, or BMC's client management, it means that you can pull data into this record about that endpoint so that you can take action against it. Footprints was designed to work with BMC Client Management. That used to be called Footprints Asset Core back in the day. They changed the name of it. But that means that you can now take action, get information about, in this case, my virtual machine on my Mac, and take action against those endpoints right from the ticket if you need. That integration capability means that you can also make requests in Footprints and have BMC's Client Management push that data out, like maybe we're requesting software. So this ticket could be that request. And because we know who you are and we know what your asset is, we can instruct Client Management to deploy software and automatically upgrade the ticket and upgrade your license counts as a result. Now, you can watch me type here if you'd like to. It's pretty exciting. I'm typing. There we go. Look, help me. Kind of the information you get back from customers sometimes. But the detail that I'm reflecting here, it doesn't have to be yours. All the information that you choose to see can be really made and fit to order, so that the stuff that you have will be fit for your business requirements as opposed to what the tool dictates. So if you have different statuses or move your tickets through a different life cycle, Footprint lets you manage all of that capability so that you can decide what information is relevant for you. Also, the ability, of course, to capture prioritizations, important, because not everything is a #1 priority, not everything is critical. If everything was critical, then nothing would be critical, right? As the old adage goes, if everyone is Superman, then no one is Superman, because suddenly we're all at the same level. And I don't know about you all, but when I travel, and I do travel for a living on occasion, when I travel, I want to be #1 on the plane. Unfortunately, there are ways of curtailing that, because otherwise everyone would ask for that, and I'll be #1, and then no one would be. So you can get that curtailed by your status or your TSA status or what have you. And in Footprints, we can determine based on impact and urgency, the stuff that our best practice world dictates, what kind of criticality this issue should have, so that you're not just randomly picking critical for the sake of critical. You can base it on your own matrix. Now notice it says here, notes here are visible to the customer. Well, anything that we choose to make visible to our customers by putting it on their version of this form would be visible to them. And a little further down the page, I have a section where it's not visible to the customer. In fact, most of these fields are not, because we don't need the customer to look at all this data. And because if you give your customer a whole bunch of fields to fill in, their choice is going to be to call you, right, instead of filling out the information. So you can see my asset detail here as we move a little further down. Of course, capture any information you want, source of your call if you'd like to, how you want to contact your customer later if you want to. Obviously, if they're calling about email, you're probably not emailing them back with the results. And then, of course, your categories are going to be different from mine, but these really are good practices. I've listed mine out based on services, the types of service that are delivered in literally every organization. And Footprints, depending upon the nature of the service chosen, is going to display different information depending on what I pick. And it's only going to display information that's relevant to the kind of request being made of us. So if I said, look, this is an other DB, then it's going to light up the field that says, hey, tell me what that is. If it's not going to light up that field, and I don't have to supply it. So the information that's supplied is always going to be based upon the nature of the category that you're picking. So that if you're doing desktop support services, we then have the ability to start supporting our desktops with our software and any other information you want to capture, like maybe I'm troubleshooting this issue, and maybe I do want to make a hot fix required. Right? So you can add any information that you need to the form. This field says internal notes. Lots of customers ask us about this. Can we do internal notes? Well, yes. Any field you don't want your customers to view won't be visible on their form. They'll never even know that exists. So it's quite different from having a Word document or a PDF that you pass around, right, where you have a section that says for office use only. Because I always look at those and go, but I can see them. I can see those fields. I could fill them in if I wanted to. There's nothing to stop you. In footprints, they can't see them. If you don't want the customer to see all this data and have to deal with all these fields, you give them a completely different experience. In my case, my customer is logging into the solution and seeing the service catalog, a representation of all of our capabilities, right? We want to put our capabilities on display so that when our customers interact with us, they can see what we're capable of doing for them. And different customers in your organization might have different needs from a services standpoint. That way, Footprints allows us to display completely different services depending on who you are. So when you've accessed the solution, you're only going to see the things that are relevant to you instead of just every old thing, right? And if you want to think about this in real world terms, if you go to your power company's site, there is no place for you to request they build a new power plant. Even though they build them, that's not a service they offer to the general public to pick, right? And most of you who work in corporate America or elsewhere don't allow your customers to say, yeah, I'd like a new data center. Can you go build one, please? It's not a typical request that they get to make. So this allows you to make sure that the services requested are as easy as drilling into a category, kind of like shopping. And then they can say, look, I want some IT services. Here's some of those services. Hey, I want a new desktop. Hey, I'd like to order one. Look, there's one for me to order. You'd probably have more than one in your system. And then the write-up, kind of like the write-up you might see on Amazon, the information about the product or service that you're offering, so that the person asking for it can see about it, read about it, and decide if they want to get one. No different than you saying, you know, request or place an order for this. You're now requesting the service. The order blank is already filled in, so the customer doesn't have to type a thing. And then this can be whooshed off into anybody's authority, right? If you need somebody to sign off on this, they can get a hold of it and make signatures before the thing ever passes into reality and that desktop gets deployed to someone. And it can be one or multiple people that get to review. And they can do it in the tool or via email. So no longer do you have to, you know, chase down somebody's sticky note or run into their office and say, hey, is this okay? Can we do this? And wait for their email response. You can capture all that information right inside of Footprints. Now, customers also have the ability, of course, to request their own incidents. It's working in the same workspace, the same factory. Just like if you're taking a tour of the factory, right? You don't get to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Some of it is just not safe for regular customers to view. But you do get to see some of it. And in this case, our customers are touring the same exact factory as my technicians were over here when they were working in their incident. The difference is my technicians get to see a lot more information about what's on display in that factory, and my customers get to see a lot less. That way, they're more likely to fill this out. So this makes sure that you can capture information about how it's affecting the customer, because we would like to know who it's affecting and how widespread it is. We'd also like to understand, hey, I'm working normally or I can't do my job. Secretly, they're telling me the priority without me asking them, are you critical? Are you the most important thing that walked? Because most people would be like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm that. And then I need help because of something. Now, I've given examples here and used some flyover text, some mouse text. Again, all codelessly. I didn't have to script to do any of this, so that we can have our customers give us symptoms. Don't set up categories for them to pick from, because that's like going to WebMD and diagnosing your disease before you see the doctor, which wouldn't really make good sense. Better served to say, hey, doc, something ain't working right. Yeah, it hurts when I do this, and I can't print or I can't do whatever. That gives you an idea of what the symptom is and a place to look. Better than just a blank sheet. At least you have some idea of what the symptom is from the customer's perspective. And if you'd like, these forms, of course, can morph as well. If we said, look, I need something new, this field now says I want, and they can fill in the information about the stuff they want. Of course, insert your stuff here, because all that information can be yours, just like the rest of the tool. So no matter what they're asking for, Footprints will comply. And if it was software installed, well, now we have another field that's lit up that says, great, I need the following software to be deployed to my machine. So that flexibility lets your customer make requests of you directly in the solution, emailing them in or calling you, and it'll, of course, move through the correct workflow behind the scenes so that those requests get fulfilled. Now, when that workflow happens, And when things occur inside of footprints, nobody from a technician standpoint is going to see things that don't belong to them. So they're not going to get to see facilities tickets unless they're a facilities team member, right? Unless you've decided otherwise. They're not going to get to see human resource requests unless they work as a human resource specialist or generalist. So all of the information is as sequestered as you'd like, but you can also ensure that the right people have the ability to look across the whole organization so that you can see all the pieces and parts moving. And you can therefore see kind of where the ball is in the tube on any given request, right? Hey, are we done? Is it close to the end? Are we going to come out the other end okay? Footprints with those workspaces lets me manage literally any type of request, from facilities requests to human resource requests or anything in between. You can build a workspace for literally any blank management process you want to. And because workspaces are free, there is no charge. You can build as many of these as you'd like, right? Every process you have in your organization can have the automation, the workflow, the approval cycles, all the reporting that you need, and each one can be fit for purpose for that process with only the correct eyes viewing the information as necessary. You can see in my facilities workspace, I have categories that help me capture facilities work, and of course, whether it's building maintenance that I'm doing or whether it happens to be grounds work that I'm doing. Right? This is the season for grounds work. Maybe I'm doing equipment maintenance on grounds work. That means that I can link that grounds work equipment directly into the record. Footprints leverages its CMDB for many purposes. The place where you store the configuration about your infrastructure, whether that's an IT infrastructure, or maybe it's simply the stuff that you own from a facilities perspective, right? Or if you're a biomedical firm, maybe you do biomedical maintenance and you maintain equipment. Whatever it happens to be, we can then link that to the record so that we can quickly see, yeah, this is on this John Deere mower. And from the perspective of the mower, you could then see, hey, there's been a lot of tickets opened against this mower. Maybe we should get it replaced because it's constantly being fixed, or whatever the process happens to be that you're managing. So workspaces, again, in Footprints, that collection of all of the stuff you need to automate your processes. Customers can fulfill their requests either by emailing you, in which case we automatically create a ticket, and each workspace that you have is going to have its requirements, including its email address, available. So that means when I email the facilities workspace, it's going to cut a facilities ticket. It's not going to create one in IT, and my IT server guys aren't going to have to figure out how to deal with a lawnmower. Won't have to work on any of that stuff. Now, all of this functionality in Footprints is done through a point-and-click interface. I want to take you a little bit behind the scenes and show you how that works. But before I do, I wanted to comment briefly for those of you who own earlier versions of Footprints. Depending on the version you own, you may have workspaces that you don't realize because they're called projects in the older versions. Same idea, they changed the name to Workspace at version 10 of Footprints. You'll also notice that I didn't drill into any workspace here at all, right? So if I'm opening a problem request for problem management, right, root cause analysis, kind of like the fire investigation, or a request for change, for those of you who worked in older versions of the product, you had to change workspaces up here and to pick a different one to be able to drill into this information. And you certainly couldn't toggle back and forth between each ticket right here in the system like this. You'd have to change workspaces, which would cause you to lose the ticket you were working on in the other workspace. So V12 has dramatically changed the way you interact with the product, right? So the solution can now give you the information that you need at your fingertips. We kind of like the idea of bringing the mountain to you instead of you having to go to the mountain. Or if you want to look at it in another way, if you were a pilot aboard a plane, you wouldn't want to have to run to the wings to set the flaps and run to the tail to set the rudder. You could do it all from one place. The older versions of the product sort of made you run around the plane and set all those settings at different spots. In version 12, all that information returns right to you so that you can get access to the things that matter. And getting that access, making the tool do what you want, is totally codeless. So I want to talk about that a little. Most folks will not show you the inner workings, right, how the sausage is made, so to speak, of their solution, because there's oftentimes code or scripting involved, or because the dialogues and interactions are so complex that it's difficult to actually demonstrate or discuss it. But with Footprints, this is the administrative section. This is where you can set up various functions, from wizards that help you build capability into the solution to managing those workspaces so that each process has its own factory, address books for managing contacts, configuration management databases so that all of the items that you manage, whatever they are, IT items, biomed items, facilities items, you name it, can all be individually managed. A service portfolio so that you have the ability to manage not only your service catalog, which we know lives inside of our service portfolio, right, but also any contracts I may have or service level agreements that I may need to manage. And of course, the ability to manage knowledge, which FootPrints also leverages. This is a big departure, by the way, from the way it used to work, guys. Knowledge bases in old versions of FootPrints, for those of you who own it, used to be a part of every workspace. So that meant the knowledge base and the workspace came together whether you wanted them or not, whether you were going to use them or not. And knowledge could only be disseminated between customers and technicians. So that meant a customer had their view of it, an agent or technician had their view of the knowledge, but that was the only dividing line you could use. Now, in version 12, all knowledge is its own separate object, so I can have as many or as few knowledge bases as I want. And all the knowledge is divvied up based on who you are, not just as a customer, but as a person. Some people will only get to see certain categories of knowledge because they don't need any other. And that way, you can have all of your knowledge for facilities, human resources, and IT, all living in the same knowledge base. And only the facilities knowledge is visible to the facilities team. The rest of that knowledge would not be visible because it's not a part of that category. So much more flexibility in the overall setup of the solution. In fact, most everything that I've been showing you today, with the exception of facilities, was built using a business process, another word for a wizard. In the old version of the tool, this was called Wizards. You could build a help desk in the old version, just like you can now, and it will construct a workspace with help desk features, right? Some of those capabilities, as well as an address book so that you can store your contact info, or maybe a human resources workspace so that you can manage the comings and goings of human resource services that you offer in your organization. Again, a wizard. By no means do these things imply that that's going to be your business model, right? That's the beauty of the tool. They'll give you a starting point if you'd like, or you can say, look, I'm not going to start here at all. I'm just going to start from scratch and add all the fields in that I want to have. But in my case, I built service management, which gives me all of these containers, my service portfolio, my knowledge base, my CMDB, my address book, even the ability to manage changes and managing, of course, my service desk for incidents, problems, and other request types that come through, service requests of any nature, really. If I click continue here and tell FootPrints to create a new address book or tell it to reuse an existing address book, for those of you who are used to old versions, this will be somewhat familiar. It just looks a little different. If I click create right now, FootPrints is going to build all of this stuff in about 6 minutes time and relate all of it together so that these processes flow the way they're supposed to. And that means you can kind of quickly ramp up in the solution because all of this stuff gets built rapidly, which includes the stuff that we've been talking about on our call today, again, with the exception of that facilities workspace. Now, when you're managing or creating any workspaces in FootPrints, you'll see that I can create a brand new one from here. Creating one makes it visible to only me. Creating it and publishing it makes it visible to other people who may have access. And in that way, the work you do in those workspaces can be published for view only when you're ready. You don't have to try to do everything at once, or especially in old versions of the product, pre-version 11. When you made changes, those changes happened instantly. They were visible to people instantly. There wasn't any way to stage that detail. Now in FootPrints, you have the ability to say, nah, we're not going to publish until we have all the changes ready, until we like them, and then we'll put it out when we need. And just so you know, the act of publishing does not require downtime. You don't have to take the system down just because you've made changes. Folks can continue to work just like before, and the modifications will simply show up as they continue to work. All of the functions in FootPrints now create exactly the same way. So for those of you who administer or work in the old versions of the product, this is a relief because everything really now behaves identically. And you can create any of these containers from a template. Now you could do this before in the old version too, except the template had to be inside of that same instance. In other words, your install of FootPrints is where the template had to live, and you could copy it and make another workspace or another container from it. In version 12, I can build the workspace on my version of FootPrints here email you the XML file, and you will have that version of Footprints on your instance. So workspaces have now become, as well as the rest of the containers in the product, have now become fully portable and can be created on any instance of Footprints, and that's true for everything you can build, from knowledge bases to service portfolios and everything in between. To manage workspaces, you'll see I have a big list of them out here. In fact, I have several pages worth that I construct over the course of doing demos. These things don't look anything like workspaces in the old version, and in fact, they're not. These are containers. These are like folders. If I look in my Photos folder on my desktop, I expect to find pictures. If I look in my Corporate Services folder, workspace really, inside of version 12, I expect to find all of the corporate services that I do. So my incident work is here, my problem investigations are here, my material ordering requests I placed in here, I built that workspace, right? Same facilities request. So this allows us to share data because workspaces now live inside of other workspaces. So that when we need to share information across them and still give our look and feel a corporate face, right? So that we have our standard terminologies that we use, Footprints now lets us do that in a hierarchical way. The creation of workspaces, again, I can build brand new ones from here or brand new surveys. We manage and send out surveys as necessary as well. And when I'm working inside of a workspace, we're going to drill into the incident workspace that we were just looking at. When I'm working inside of a workspace, you will see that I have a view of the form from an agent perspective. That always used to be the case, even in the old versions. The difference was in the old versions that the customer also saw this same form. The fields were hidden, right? So we did a little smoke and mirrors. We hid some fields from your view for if you were a customer, but you were on the same form. In the new version of Footprints, customers have their own view of that form. So that means when I drill into this form and look at what's referred to as Form Designer, and for those of you who work in version 11 of Footprints, this was actually backported to version 11 from version 12 before version 12 was ever announced. So that's how it kind of showed up on the scenes in version 11. But Form Designer gives you the capability of really taking the fields that you've created, and we create those right inside the tool in the screen that I just passed, and dragging those fields anywhere on the page or creating my own new sections so that I can add as much information as I want. And you can see we have many different sections already. I can easily add a brand new section into the tool and then say, yeah, you know, I want that new section to live here. So we'll put it under there. And I would like to have the following fields, you know, located on this brand new section. I'm just making stuff up here as I go, so kind of bear with me. But I'm going to grab that information, add the closure date and time field to the record. Maybe I'll add my email address field to the record. Right? I'm just, again, making this up. But for those of you on really old versions of Footprints, this is completely different because there is no physical way to do what I just did in your version of Footprints. If you're on versions prior to 11, I cannot stack a field one on top of the other like this because I would have to have fields everywhere else too. So the changes in version 12 are huge. Right? Nothing really looks or feels the way it did in the earlier versions because it is on a completely different platform. We're going to get into that in a little more detail as well. Now, there's also an Agent Mobile version if you have a dumb smartphone. If your smartphone supports HTML5, there's no reason, and the tool won't really leverage this. But if you do have a not-so-smart smartphone, you can allow your technicians to access it from their BlackBerry, right? Their old BlackBerry that didn't pinch zoom. That way, even smartphones that can't really browse the web can still view information from Footprints, and you can still allow folks to interact with it. Building fields, add as many as you'd like right from here. I'm not contacting any DBAs. You can see I have 50 or 61 fields already built. This would be my 62nd one. Create fields of any type, picture fields or drop-down fields called single select here, text area fields, even work schedule fields so that I can now show and display who's available and who's not as a work schedule right inside the record. And the ability to add as many assignee fields as I need. Maybe a primary assignee like the team, the secondary assignee like the individual, maybe another assignment for the escalated to party if the ticket had to be escalated. So many changes again from earlier versions of the product, but this lets you set the parameters for those fields, lets you decide if they're optional or mandatory. Right? If they're required, then somebody has to fill them out. And then I just drag and drop them onto the page where I need them. This means all fields I create, you can have as many as you'd like, are going to be fully searchable, fully reportable, and fully usable to create rules or triggers from a notification standpoint or from an assignee standpoint or any other automations that you do. In fact, in version 12, all of the old rule systems that you might be used to in your older versions of Footprints are gone. Instead, we use a business rule. Business rules, I'm going to list this out in a way that might be a little friendlier for those using older versions of the product. This now looks a little more like your older escalations list. But business rules let you do anything, right? From notifying people to changing the default assignment, to escalating to a particular group, to moving or copying tickets between workspaces. Hey, this called into the help desk, but it's really a facilities ticket, so we're going to put it over into the facilities workspace. Even rules that happen live on the screen now, which is a big change. That never happened before. Or the jack of all trades rule, after save rules that allow you to really build any rule to do anything. It'll handle all of these functions and then some in the after save rule. That way, when a ticket gets saved or modified, you can take automations against that ticket and have it notify people when you want with the words that you want. But Footprints also manages in a new way when it comes to managing automations. And that new way is referred to as workflow. I'm going to pick on change management here a little bit. We know that in best practice speak, there are a few different kinds of changes. Even if we don't adhere to best practices, there are several different types. And each change type is going to have its own workflow. Emergency changes are managed in a more emergency way than a normal change would be. A standard change is highly repeatable, may not need anyone to sign off at all. So each workflow process, and I have included another one here just for discussion's sake, each workflow process literally is a picture. And the picture tells Footprints where that ticket should move on its life cycle, what tracks it should follow. So you can see here, this is an approval state. The system tells me it is. I have a checkbox that says so. If the people that I pick to approve, and I can select anyone that I want to from the approvers list, you can see I have a few different groups here. We can add any number of approvers that we want, managers, customers, you name it. But when I add those folks, if they say yes, then it goes to approved for production. If they say no, then it gets rejected and moves to a closed status. And these little R's are not here because of it being piratey. Yar. They're here because these are rules. Business rules get evoked at these points, and I may want to notify the fact that, that this was a rejected request. Making modifications to these will change the way the ticket lifecycle flows. And to give you an idea of that real quick, this is the emergency process as it was configured. Footprints does not know where you want to have someone sign off, so it didn't add any sign-offs. But I'm going to do that for you real quick. I don't want these to be assigned out to anyone until they get approved. So we're just going to say, hey, if an emergency request comes in, I'm going to make this an approval state. Footprints asks me if I want to add approved and rejected, to which I say yes, I would love to. And now the approved state is going to allow the ticket to move to the assigned out state. You can see you can move these little guys anywhere you want to arrange the picture as you'd like, and you can connect them just by dragging that little arrow up. And now this state is connected to this. So if I pick my approvers here and they say yes, then it goes to assigned out. And if they say no, then I'm just going to close the request and send a notification via a business rule right here. So workflow in Footprints is completely new. This is not a capability that existed in any prior version. There is no scripting or coding. The picture is the workflow, and modifying that workflow allows you to move those tickets along any life cycle you want. Now, of course, capturing all this info, all this detail, using the solution means that you're eventually going to want to pull data back. And I'm going to want to figure out where my tickets are, what's going on with my requests. For you that are using older versions, you have a little search bar up top that lets you search. I can still do that searching here. But because I'm not in a workspace anymore when I land, right, all the work that I need is brought to me based on who I am, I decide where I'm going to search for this stuff from anywhere. I'm in the administrative area, and I'm going to choose to search all my incidents, right? All the incident work that I have, I'm going to choose to search that for any email issues, because I suspect we may have some email issues going on, right? Some of these are turned red. A business rule did that, right, because they were critical, and I told it to turn them red if they were. But you can see all the info has now been returned that match that particular type, and I can change any values I want, add new columns, group by particular fields, filter by certain values if I wanted to filter out all the critical issues. So all of the searching capabilities of Footprints have retained their power. You can search for any data you've ever captured. But I can also do what are called advanced searches. For those of you familiar with Footprints, you know an advanced search lets me look across the entire system, lets me look at all different fields in combination with each other. This looks nothing like the old version of the search engine, nothing at all. This gives me the ability to name my search, define my search with some notes so that I can remember what happens after, 3 years. Hey, why did I build a search called New Search? What did it do? So you can have some notes to go with it, make it private, or share it with others if you're the sharing type. Search in every container. In the old version of Footprints, the minute you did what was called a cross-workspace search, you started limiting your searching ability because only the fields that were common across all those containers would show up. It would be like saying only the factories that have the same equipment would show up in the list, right? That's the way it used to work. Now in Footprints, you can search all the containers simultaneously for all the fields. You're not limiting your search capability. So if I wanted to search for more detailed information, and you can see everything is here, all of my workspaces, maybe I'm going to search my incident workspace for some info. Pick your conditions, decide what it is you want to find. I'm just going to look for age and say, look, we're just looking for old tickets, right? Things that should have been closed and that haven't been closed yet. Notice that I'm now searching for tickets that are more than 5 days old. They won't get older if they're closed, just like we don't get older when we close as a people. I'll add some columns that I would like to add as a part of my output. I'm just double-clicking these to add them. And if you want to sort that, well, you can just change the order of it here if you want to, or change it on the actual search page. I just drag that up. When you publish this, it is now a query. For those of you using searches in the old version, searches were standalone. You couldn't use that as the basis for querying anything. You had to write the search again when you went to do a report. But now I can create a search that is actually leverageable as a report later down the road. No DBAs involved at all. I'm searching for all the stuff that can be in the database. And eventually BMC will come up with a mobile app. They have not done this yet because they don't need to. Right? It works perfectly from your mobile device. But the mobile app wouldn't be a client. That's not the intent, at least on the radar now. Their intent is to have it be a push client so that you can take some information that you may need to manage your day job, including searches, which you could push down to that little app. Again, it's not required. You don't need it. You can get all your searching done and pull back all your searches right from the mobile client, which is really your web browser, right, already. When you go to preview the results, you'll see the details of my search. I can, of course, add additional columns to this, any additional information I want to display, and save this search later if I want to. Now, this turns into reporting, because eventually when I save my search as a query, I want to be able to report on things. So we're going to go into our reports section and talk a little bit about doing those reports. Reports in Footprints take on many different shapes and sizes, just like they used to. Your metrics reports are here. And all the rest of the reporting capabilities here. This is a whole new report engine. So metrics reports, of course, give you the kind of standard stock. Some people think of these as out-of-the-box reports. But that assumes out-of-the-box reports are going to tell the story in your business. And everybody's business is a little different, right? One of the big mistakes in writing reports is trying to assume somebody else's data is going to fit your model. So we let you do all of those types of reports, which are going to fit really one size fits all, pretty much anybody's process, but also service portfolio reports or custom reports, dashboarding, time tracking. And as we do, I'm going to talk about dashboarding a little bit. As we create reports, you'll see that we have some counts. I have some activity reports that I built. Footprints tells me who built them, when they were built, whether they're shared or not. I don't have any service portfolio reports built, but I do have some custom reports that I've constructed. And here they are, 15 of those. And when we dive into the report engine, which I'm going to do now, we'll start taking a peek at those reports and how you can write them. I want to talk briefly about dashboards, guys. Dashboarding in Footprints has changed as well. For those of you on version 11, you have the executive dashboard. That gives you a set of widgets that you can pre-configure for functions, right? Set parameters for them, and it will show you data based on the parameters for those widgets. But you cannot change the widget itself. They're predefined. In version 12, A dashboard is really built out of any report you choose. And if you say, I want this report to be a part of a dashboard, you check the box on the report that says add the dashboard, and it'll become a part of the dashboard pool. This is the dashboard pool. All the reports that I've said I eventually want to make into a dashboard. And any of them that I want to build a dashboard out of, I just say, yeah, let's add this one now to the dashboard from the pool. We'll add this one to the dashboard from the pool. We'll add that one to the dashboard from the pool, or any others. This lets you tell whatever data story you need to tell, because you're no longer limited by those predefined widgets. You can instead create any report you want. And to make a report available in a dashboard, you check that box on the report, and it gets added to the pool so you can then take advantage. You can also place any report you'd like on your home screens. For those of you on older versions, you notice that there were only really 2 reports you could put out there. Incidents by status and receive versus close for me or the team for a period of time. Now any report can show up on your home screen that you'd like. So my report capability lets me see, in this case, I titled it In Progress Tickets. I'm basing it on one of those saved searches that I wrote before. You can easily create your own saved search, but for those of you on the old version, your saved searches cannot be leveraged like this. You have to write the search again when you build the report. I can decide what data I'm going to bring over. You can see I've put some check marks in here. I got the short description and the status and a couple others that I've added. And that lets me then see that data as a nice clean output, which I could then dump out as an Excel file or a PDF. Now we know that some folks do dump out data to Excel. In the old version of Footprints, that was a CSV file. It wasn't an actual Excel file, but you had the ability to edit it there. Here it's really an Excel document that you can edit. But the reason people did that was because they couldn't really get all the data assimilated the way they wanted to, right? They couldn't ingest that data the way Footprint presented it sometimes. They needed to modify it. Well, Footprints now lets you do pivot tables already inside the product. You don't have to export to do that, or create charts that are simply not available in Excel, right? Go build a gauge chart in Excel. Let me know how that goes, because there isn't one to pick from, and you'd have to construct it out of a few different components and hide some pieces. It's kind of a tricky business. So I can build all of that stuff in the product now. I can do data aggregation in the product now, including distinct counts, which are things you would have to get a DBA involved for, typically in the old version of the tool, or group it or filter the data based on any content that I want to. I can even create my own formula and add them in Footprints directly. All capabilities that never existed before. And when I include charts or graphs, of course, those can also be output as PDFs or Excels so that you can have folks gain access to them. For those of you who may have used auto-run report or who wish you could distribute reports to the correct audience, Footprints allows you to automatically run and schedule reports right from the report so that the correct person gets it at the correct time, maybe every Monday at 6 a.m. Or if you want to annoy your friends, every hour, you could send them that report. They might not like you so good after that. But the report output is very clean now. Extremely easy to read, extremely easy to use. And of course, since this is a nice PDF, you have all the PDF controls that you need. So if you want to play with it, print it, save it, whatever you want to do, all that ability would exist inside of the report itself from Footprints. So overall, guys, version 12 of the product has changed pretty dramatically. You're not going to know your way around here if you've had the old version, right, because everything is really done differently. And that brings us to discussing how you get there. Because in the old versions of the tool, and from version 12 forward in the tool, everything was in place. So if you went from 10 to 11, it was just a wizard, you ran it and upgraded in place. And on version 12, when you get new releases, and BMC should have a summer release coming out, when that happens, it'll go right over the top of all the version 12 installations, right? No changes. In fact, you won't lose any of your settings or any of your values because Footprints is configurable, which means your settings and your configurations stay even through upgrades. So you don't have to worry about losing all that info that you may have worked to build. That stuff does not get modified. It stays just like it was. But if you're on an older version of the product, there are 2 ways, really, of getting somewhere. One is a method that was developed called the Migration Manager, or the Migration Advisor. And what it does is it looks in your existing version of Footprints, and it sees what you've done to it, right? And that version must be the latest 11.x version, which is 11.6.2 something, I think, right now. It must be that latest version because it needs a known code base in order to work. So it'll evaluate it. It'll decide whether or not you've done anything, you know, out of the ordinary, like maybe you've injected your own Java, or if your coder's got a hold of the Perl script behind the scenes in the old version and started changing it. It's going to tell you those changes won't come across. It's also going to tell you that a lot of the old features in the tool, things like the way auto-assign worked or things like the way escalation rules worked, in fact, literally all the rules have been replaced with a business rule in version 12. So those things don't get exported and come across as a part of your configuration. But if you continue and want to use that migration tool, it will take your workspaces. You cannot pick which ones, but it will take all of your workspaces that you have in your old version. It will export them as an XML file, which you can then re-import in version 12, right? Just like you're importing from a template. It's just an XML file that Footprints uses to construct the workspaces. Now, that's ideal if you have fallen in love with the way your existing construction is looking, right? If you love the way Footprints works now, you wouldn't change a thing. You wouldn't take advantage of any of the new abilities to design inside of v12, then that may be a perfect fit for you. And of course, the data doesn't come as a part of that. You would export the data, and we work with you, of course, on making that happen. That way, that data can get exported and re-imported. Most commonly, our customers do not go that route, right? They would like to take advantage of v12, the new capabilities, the new palette that it offers you. It gives you much more varied capability in terms of design and in terms of flexibility. So they usually decide to construct right inside of v12 from scratch. And they also typically leave their data where it is, because it'll never get more perfect by migrating it elsewhere. Right? So moving it over to v12 won't make it better than it used to be. It's the same data. In fact, anytime you change systems, you're always going to lose a little data fidelity, usually around date timestamps when you export. So you can take that choice, and we absolutely have worked with customers that have done so. But that also limits your design hand a little, because now you're having to build a workspace in your new instance that looks like your old one, sort of like making your new car look just like your old car, which kind of defeats the purpose of getting the new car, right? So there are ways of getting over that hump of making it work, and we have a professional services team that has been doing this for ages. Footprints v12 has been out for 2 years plus now, and we were the first partner on board doing this for BMC. We are the largest in North America doing this for BMC, so we have tons of experience in making that kind of transition happen. So if you're on an existing version of Footprints and would like to get transitioned to the new one, talk to us, and we will be more than happy to help determine what the best route forward between those might be for you. Ladies and gentlemen, with all that said, I want to turn this back over to Mr. Richard Longo, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to me talk to you about the product. We hope that we as Flycast can assist you in the future with Footprints or with any other needs that you may have.
Folks, hey, Greg, thank you so much for a great presentation. And you did address a lot of the biggest challenges that we had. There were so many more that weren't addressed because we just ran out of time. But I do appreciate everybody's time. Any additional biggest challenges or information you absolutely need, please reach out to us at